All right. Welcome in, everybody, to week 2 of the B.G.G.F.P.L.M.L podcast. This week, we've got a special host, our reigning league champion, Marcus Weeks.
Yes. Absolutely stoked to be on the pod today, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, we're, like we mentioned last time, going to be doing a pretty casual conversation for the pod each week. And today we're going to kick things off with an FPL term of the week. Brandon, take
Term of the week. So last week, as you guys might recall, we did some tilting. Now we are 1 week into the season, and I know many of us, particularly Kwanzaa and Barco owners, are trying our best not to tilt. If you, like myself, happen to have Minta, Kwanzaa, Nkunku, Poro, all injured or yanked off before 60 minutes, you might be tempted to tilt. But no, we shan't, because today our FPL word of the week is knee-jerk, and we will not be knee-jerking this week. Knee-jerk, for those uninitiated, means to quickly blow out your knee fast in one direction, or to make an extremely early transfer with limited information. Have I already made a transfer for this week? Possibly. Was it a knee-jerk? I don't believe so. We're still waiting on Poro injury news, but from what has kind of come out, I feel like it could be decent. Not going to miss some time, fingers crossed. But essentially, knee-jerk just means to, after being tilted, make a very quick decision, spur of the moment with limited information, not wait to the deadline, transfer out a player that you just transferred in, do something quickly, and then, possibly at 1, 2 a.m. as you check your phone in anger, and then wake up in the morning and with the full clarity of morning, think to yourself, I can't believe I did that. And inevitably it ends up costing you a fair number of points. Knee-jerk is our FPL term of the week. I don't know if Donovan or Marcus, you guys have any thoughts on knee-jerking, or perhaps have done so in the past. But feel free to add your thoughts.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you have some experience here.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I've blown an MCL or two in my day. Sure.
That's too funny.
I feel like my unfortunate procrastination, kind of similar to Rob was talking about last week, that somewhat protects me a little bit from knee jerking, because I just don't get around to actually figuring out what I'm gonna do with my team until the latter half of the week usually. So in a way, I think it's a protective measure, but I probably have knee jerked a few times in my past.
Nice.
Donovan, what about you? Have you fallen victim to the knee jerk?
Not quite as bad as rage transferring out Pulisic after 10 minutes into a double game week, but no, I have. Usually it's trying to avoid a price rise or fall, and so I'll see something out there and they're like, oh, I got to make the transfer, and then it blows up. But not haven't been burnt too bad in the past.
That's good.
I will say I like how the terms of the week are so they carried nicely into each other. So
yeah, there's a nice flow there for sure. I definitely have knee jerk before into an injury, where I transferred out one player on a knee jerk, and the player I transferred in, we found out the next day that they actually had some injury they were nursing, and they mixed the next game week. So don't be like me. Wait, proper way to do your transfers, unless you're trying to avoid a certain player's price drop this week, in which case I don't believe that this was a knee jerk, hypothetically speaking. But with that, Donovan, why don't you take us into our question of the day?
Question of the
day. Go from there.
Yeah, this is for everybody, so feel free to hop in if you've got it. But what's the biggest surprise from game week 1? We're hot off a brand new season, so what surprised you?
I feel like for me, it had to have been the Vardy party that went down.
You stole mine.
Me too.
I'm sorry. That's the easy one to take. Man, oh man, how exciting and joyous days for Leicester fans. I mean, Yeah, I didn't actually get to watch the game real time, but love those extended highlights that NBC puts out for us on YouTube. Um, but yeah, just seeing like how the first half of the game went, and then just for Vardy to just swoop in like Superman in the second half and rescue a point for Leicester. Crazy, crazy.
Did you
I
see
really
his
wish I
like
could have been in the
celebration?
stadium. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, with the
He's like U0
yeah.
91 or whatever. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was sick. That was sick. Wish I could have been in the stadium for that one.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
What
Donovan, you
about
gonna
you,
go
Brandon?
next?
I don't have
Ah,
one.
okay, fine.
I'm trying to
All right,
think.
fine, fine, fine. Um, so I will say that, let's see, that the cop out would be the Kwanzaa being yanked at halftime. I think was surprising, but not the most surprising thing. Um, I'm gonna go for kind of a cop out, still a cop out answer, and say Chelsea bringing in like three new transfers this past week. I read something where I guess they have something like 40 or so squad players, and
My gosh.
they're only actually practicing with like 22 or so at a time, and then like another full half the squad is like training on their own in some other facility, and they're not even getting any face time with the coaches. um, Chilwell has been told he's not part of their plans. Sterling's been told he's not part of their plans. They literally just like bought another midfielder who has been immediately relegated to that like not even practice squad, just like completely out of the picture squad. And so after the Manchester City you know allegations hearings all clear up, and interesting how the financial fair play police come after Chelsea, because I think it's probably only a matter of time at this point.
Dang.
I think one commentator in the UK made some quip about how like Joao Felix, it's not how they'll get him on the field, it's how they'll find him a locker in the locker room because there's just no space. uh, so I will say, give it to
Wild.
Chelsea. Biggest surprise would be them bringing in even more players after Game of 1 has passed.
Dang.
That's
I
crazy.
thought of a good one. I'm surprised Eze didn't get a ton of points this week.
That is good. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw his like free kick goal, but it
I,
was like just right outside the corner of the box, and he just made a beautiful goal. It hit off the post and in, but then they called it out because someone like, and it didn't even really look like a foul on the replay, but one of the referees called a foul and blew his whistle right before the ball went into the goal. So it made it so that VAR couldn't check it out.
Mm.
wow, that's sick.
And
I would
then I
feel
think he
I
had
would
another, yeah,
I
like offside or whatever.
I'd feel worse if I was a owner, but yeah, that does sound sick.
And you tell that I am. um, but yeah, that was pretty crazy. I learned something new about VAR, but very surprising that he seemed like he was going to get a ton of points. He was just so instrumental in that team. So, well, sweet. Lots of good, lots of good surprises in game week 1. Excited to see what happens in game week 2. Um, well, I think we can move into our manager spotlight now. Brandon, I know you've got a couple questions to kick things off, so why don't you take it away?
For sure. Marcus, again, super excited to have you on the pod. So last season goes without saying, tremendous, flying high, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tolu was kind of leading the way for a while, but you were always kind of lurking there and then passing at the end. Can you maybe give me like a little bit of a season recap, championship season in review? Like, what were some of the highlights for you? How, like, what was your thought process throughout the season as you approached the finish line? Did you think that you could win it all? Just give me the whole rundown.
Nah, yeah. I mean, what a wonderful, glorious 38 weeks that was. No, I think yeah, it was definitely surprising to me that I ended up at the top of the mountain last year. I feel like in general it was kind of an odd season. Like I remember there being a point like early on, maybe around like week 10 or 11, where I took a look at the standings and I was just like shocked at the names who were in the bottom half of the table. Like it was like all the proven guys in our league were like down in the bottom half. Like I think Donovan, you spent some time down there early. Rob was down
Was
there really
close to
early.
relegation for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
J-Rod is way
And
down for a
J-Rod,
long time.
feel bad for that
Crazy.
guy. He had a great
I
season,
know.
barely made it, barely made it out of relegation. But yeah, no, I feel like it was a bit of an odd season in that regard. And yeah, like you mentioned, Tolu kind of got out of the gate pretty quickly. I think he had like it took till like week 9 or 10 until he lost his first game. So it felt like for a while everybody was kind of chasing him. And yeah, I kind of caught up to him and we were going back and forth like basically the whole last half of the year until, you know, till basically the very end. And that's when Rob kind of snuck into the picture and almost made himself really relevant there. But yeah, I think in general for me, last season, um, I kind of realized that in some regards less is more a little bit. In prior seasons I was doing a lot of research, for my standards. I know some guys on the pods here spend, I won't say how long, but spend a long time doing research ahead of time. But for me I was doing a
Some
lot.
guys on the pod.
Yeah, some guys. But I think last year, just the combination of my schedule with like medical school and everything, I had to cut back a little bit. So I was like, this is gonna be my dedicated time. And I think that helped me from overthinking a lot of things, which I felt like I had been doing previously. So yeah, and I think last year was also interesting because I ended up not being quite as high of a overall rank as I was the year prior when I finished in like eighth or ninth place. So it's just, any year something different can happen. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on the week or on the season last year. It was a great time. Enjoyed the whole ride.
So what was like the one title clinching decision you had coming down the stretch? Rob is starting to come in the picture a little bit. Tolus is trying to hang on. Some other people, perhaps Donovan, myself, were waiting in the wings. What was like the decision that you feel like that like okay, I made this move or I didn't make this move, and that kind of clinched it for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of I think it had to have been somewhere around, I think, like week 31 or 32. There was like a big blank game week coming up. I think like only 6 or 8 sides were playing. And I remember Bournemouth and Luton, I think, both had double game weeks during that big blank. And I think the move for me that like really like spurred on that last push of the season was the fact that I wild carded like 2 weeks before that big blank. And because I did that, I brought in like triple Bournemouth and triple Luton. So I didn't have to free hit in that blank game week when I feel like a lot of guys ended up free hitting there. Um, and I was able to like, eke out a couple of victories there around that time. But the real crux of that was that I saved my free hit for later on. And I was able to play it in one of the big double game weeks and ended up scoring like 160, 170 points. And I think that like it was over somebody good too. I think like maybe Logan or somebody who was in the hunt. And that was a big victory for me. So I think that move was something that really helped me in those last few weeks. It was scary too because I wild carded a team that did not have Holland in it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's not gonna end well. But we made it through. We made it through.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I remember both the blank game week and then the week you're talking about with those crazy scores. That was like the Eze, Elise, and Mateta, you
Yes,
know,
yes. That week
nutty week. So that's
made
awesome. Good call there. And actually, I remember you doing that wild card like 2 weeks for the blank. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, was that the right call? Was it not? And then obviously it worked out. So huge kudos to you. Going into this season now, you had a really strong game week one. I think you were tied for the second most points in the league, only to Logan, who I matched up against. It's fine. And so super strong, super solid, Marcus. Like, what were some of like the critical decisions there you feel like, and you were like the key guys in your team? And how do you feel generally, I guess, about game week one this year and your first step to defending the title?
Yeah, yeah. Every good title defense starts in week one. So, yeah, it was definitely nice to get out to a bit of a hot start. Yeah, I was really pleased with the side. I thought a lot of guys performed well. I think I ended up on 74 points or something. And like 6 of my 11 guys returned. So, anytime you have more than half your guys returning, I think that sets you up pretty well. I think like the biggest thing is that I drafted a team that had both Holland and Salah. So I was able to put the captainship on Salah week one, which obviously worked out very well in my favor. It was huge. And it allowed me to have a nice, easy rest for the Saturday games after I had watched Salah, get a goal and an assist in that early window. So it made watching the games a lot more fun. Um, yeah, I think other than him, I think Garnacho was also really interesting. He had an interesting day. He started the day on the bench and I was crying because I was like, really? This dude is on my bench and he's probably gonna come in like the 80th minute, give me a one pointer and that would be it. But he came in and he looked brilliant in the second half of that United game. I felt like I mean, there was definitely a couple chances he duffed the ball like right in front of an open goal. So he definitely could have had at least one, maybe two more goals, in addition to the assist that he ended up getting. So he had a great half of the game that he played. So excited to see what he's going to look like in the coming weeks. I gotta say, I'm a little bit concerned moving forward, especially since I went with the Holland and Salah draft. And I also have Saka on my side. So like those three dudes are like taking up a lot of the funds. So I feel like I may get myself in a little bit of a bind with the lack of mobility that I'll have to transfer guys in and out. But for now, at least it's working. So hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pulling up
100%.
your team now, and I'm like, good thing you don't have Kwanzaa
Yeah,
as one of your
it
chief
would be a
defenders.
struggle.
Yeah, but I will say, obviously, having Holland and Salah uh, and Saka at least allows you to kind of downgrade any of those options to other people. Probably difficult to move some of your lower priced assets, but at least for game week one, the Holland, Salah, Saka strategy, which I think is super unique, by the way, has really paid off because most people that would have Salah wouldn't have Holland, and you obviously did. And certainly most people that have a Salah draft don't have Saka. Because if you went with a Holland draft, oftentimes you downgraded Salah to Saka in order to upgrade
Mhm.
somewhere else. But I
Mhm.
think that's certainly paid off game week one, and best of luck over the coming game weeks. Um,
Yeah.
with
Heck
with
yeah.
that, Dono, did you want to segue us into our next segment?
Yeah, we're doing a little around the league. We've got, you know, there's always fun stuff happening. Marcus, you kind of talked about how like it's interesting because the structure of our league is a head to head, but and how that kind of works with overall rank. I think, 2 seasons ago I won the golden boot, but was like by far like way Rob was like way higher than me in like our league standings or whatever, right? or like the same like as last year. You're talking about how like so many guys that are like high overall rank were in the bottom half of the table. And so we wanted to just highlight a couple of key matchups from the week, a couple things that kind of happened around the league. Brandon, do you want to kick us off with our first one?
Sure. I think that one could not look at the league table or the results from this first week and not have their eyes drawn to the Peterson Derby. Crazy scenes there. Protests filed. This is something that probably rivals the Olympic gymnastics controversy. With Romania filing something, the Olympic committees are going at each other. The Court of Arbitration for Sport has gotten involved.
Yeah,
really
exactly
unclear how this all shapes up.
For those who missed it, it was a super late ad. It was like what, an hour after the final game, they added a single point bonus point to Guvardiol, which then tied Andrew Peterson and Chris Peterson. Chris had the win until the Guvardiol bonus point.
That's right. And that's actually a big change this year in how they're going to do the bonus point scoring. And in prior years, as some people might recall, there were goals that were, disallowed or that maybe should have been allowed. And then a few days later, the goal was changed, but they said, oh, well, we're past an hour after the game. We're not going to affect anything now. It seems like they might be more willing to do that, at least when it comes to bonus points, although correct me if I'm wrong on goals and assists. They will update the bonus point system not just until an hour after the game, but I think an hour after the last game of the game week. So something could happen on Friday, and then Monday it's going to get changed. So don't count your chickens before they hatch, Chris, because you never know what could happen. And in this case, I think from reviewing their teams as well, I was really surprised. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by how similar the teams were. Perhaps some collusion going on there, a little bit of chatting back and forth. Very similar. I think the same forward lineups. Both went kind of quasi big at the back. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I think a really good and very interesting way to kind of kick off the season for the Petersons.
Yeah. I caught up with Chris after the game, and this is what he had to say. He said, disappointed in the decision from FPL Towers, but ultimately no one is to blame but myself. Who was I to think that Tottenham would keep a clean sheet against a newly promoted squad after leading at halftime? I turned the game off at the half to finish out my workday. As an Arsenal fan, I should know better. Time to regroup and come back stronger next week.
Wow.
I think that
just wow.
I think that captures it well. On the
Very
flip
humble
side of the bonus points, my matchup definitely benefited from a single extra bonus point from Pedro Porro. It wasn't a late ad, but Joe and I were neck and neck, and Porro's single bonus point that kind of pushed things over the edge for me has now. I've now ordered a Pedro Porro jersey on the way. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do that, but he could be this year's Almiron. We'll see.
I think it's worth discussing how the bonus point system has changed this year to pretty clearly favor forwards. Chris Wood was somebody who I strongly considered in my initial draft. I think that Logan had him. He had one shot on goal, 1 goal, 3 bonus. Porro in prior years might have ended up on 3 bonus with a goal, and this time just barely held on to 1. Really could favor forwards as we go on. I think that in prior years, I and others have complained that forwards don't quite score to the same level as midfielders. There's so far fewer of them also. There's not really clear whether or not they're fully worth it. And now it seems like maybe they've done some slight tweaks to the bonus point system to kind of make a 3-4-3 formation a lot more viable. Correct me if I'm wrong, Donovan, but it seems like actually most people in our league went for a 3-4-3, or at least had 3 viable forward options.
Yeah, I'm checking it right now, but I think that was the majority in our league.
Yeah, I think it was like
Three
half.
four three. 15.
Oh,
15 out of 20.
15.
We're doing 3-4-3. 3-4-4-2s and 1-3-5-2. Or sorry, 2-3-5-2s.
Marcus, I forget, who did you have with obviously having Salah, Saka, Holland, maybe fielding like a super cost heavy forward lineup wasn't the easiest thing. How did your forwards do this game apart from Holland?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so I had João Pedro and Solanke in there, in addition to Holland. And yeah, when I was kind of crafting the team, my initial team started out with Isak up there in addition to Holland, and it was impossible to have enough money to like fund everything else that I needed to have in the team. Like I could barely get a side out that had Holland, Isak, Salah, and Saka. That's initially what I was looking at. So I definitely had to cut some funds out of the forward line. Downgraded him to Solanke. So I guess we'll see how that looks going forward. I mean, obviously Solanke did have his fair share of opportunities in that first game, in the minutes that he played. Just like Spurs didn't quite capitalize on it, but I feel like that's like a classic Spurs thing. They don't quite capitalize on their opportunities. But yeah, I feel like to have a strong, well-rounded side, you got to kind of distribute the funds evenly. So just paid the price in my forward line other than Holland.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's another great thing about pricing this year is you have to make decisions everywhere.
Yeah.
The last game that we will touch on was Sean McNamara coming out with a 74 pointer, tying Marcus with the quote unquote red squad that was highlighted in the chat before the game week started. Would I have guessed that a team with a Quanta 1 pointer, an Ano 1 pointer, blanks from Bruno, Rashford, uh, and Alanga would tie for the game or second most points in the game week? No, but he backed his Red Boys, Jota, Salah, and Mazraoui for Manchester United ahead of the curve. Big kudos to Sean on an opening game week dub.
I just checked his kit in the actual Fantasy Premier League website is also red. So
All red, baby. All
there you
red.
go.
The Red Devils,
Surprised he
baby.
didn't go with Chris Wood up front.
Yeah, right. That's ludicrous. You have to have commitment. Got to go all in. You can't have any blues in there when you got the Reds. So I know we don't have a ton of time, so want to start wrapping up. But I did want to do another brief teaser for the World Cup action that we will provide a little bit more information on later. But the general strategy right now is to have everybody choose their own country, and we're going to go in reverse order from the standings from last year. Marcus came in first last year, and so he gets first choice of country. Marcus, have you selected a country to represent for World Cup 2024, 2025?
I have, and I think Sean may be a fan of the answer because this crew also does roll in red. But the country I've got to select must be the Soca Warriors of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, excellent choice.
Dang.
Yes. I think they're a really talented team. So we'll see. I mean, I think me being having Trinidadian blood, my mom is from Trinidad. It was the natural choice for me to be at the helm there. I know they had some success back in 2006. I think that was the last time and the only time that they've qualified for the FIFA World Cup. And if you're into like the little known stats, they were the smallest nation ever to qualify for the World Cup up until 2018 when Iceland first qualified. So they're a little bit smaller, but so yeah, I think it'll be exciting. This team's got a strong veteran presence. Guys like Levy Garcia and Sheldon Batu. they're gonna kind of, be at the helm of the team. But they do got a crop of young talent coming up as well. So I'll be happy to be at the helm and have the team return to the glory of the early 2000s.
I love it.
Love that, man.
That's
Love that.
awesome. Very much looking forward to the World Cup competition this year.
Yeah.
We've also got a competition I know you all are itching to hear more about, which is the Beat the Average Gauntlet. Brendan and I have put our beards on the line. Mine's barely growing in. But we had 13 different managers qualify for the Beat the Average. I will specify, since I didn't last time, we'll count if you meet the average or beat the average to move on in the gauntlet. But 13, I won't go through them all on this call, but I will send it out afterwards so we can all see it. But that's huge. That means our league is above average, which is great. So
that's solid. Cool. Well, I think that is all the time we have for today. Huge thank you to Marcus for hopping on with us. Hopefully we'll get you back again later in the season. Yeah, thanks everybody. I think there was some great support for the podcast for episode 1. Hopefully everybody enjoys this one as well, and we'll keep cranking them out as the season goes. Marcus, Donovan, any last words from either of you?
No, thank you, Marcus, for joining. It was great having you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Talk to you boys anytime.
You bet, man. All right.
See you guys later.
Thanks.